Artists, day 89 today, and we're going to be starting the chiaroscuro painting. I'm DaleneFM, and this is the Epic Journey. So what you're watching now is me working on a canvas that I had used when I was doing the measurement, drawing out your portrait on canvas using the measurement method. When I started this canvas, I didn't have any particular plan in mind, and in fact, I thought it was a pretty good idea to just leave this canvas hanging as it was with the charcoal drawing on it on my art room wall, as a documentation of the day that we were doing that particular exercise. But then I needed a canvas to do the chiaroscuro painting, and I figured that one was already prepared, so I might as well use it. But I had a little problem. The photograph that I had prepared that painting from, or prepared that canvas from, was taken by a dear friend of mine, Tracy Zettler. The model that is featured in the photograph is my youngest daughter, Siobhan, who's 14. And the photograph was taken in daylight and in full light. There was no chiaroscuro value to it, really. It was just, in fact, there was very little light and shadow altogether. It was pretty much even light spread throughout the painting. So now I wanted to make it into a chiaroscuro painting. Now, as you will remember from yesterday's chat, chiaroscuro is the art of painting with an extreme light and an extreme dark. So there's lots and lots of contrast. And this particular painting wasn't going to suit. So what I've done, and I'll show you the comparison here. The painting on the left is the original one that was taken of Siobhan by my friend Tracy, and that is the one that I used to prepare the canvas with. And the one on the right was me just fiddling around with my cell phone camera. It really wasn't a fancy camera at all. But what I did was I asked Siobhan to stand in a similar pose, and I shone a torch on the side of her face, and I put it she's standing in my art room doorway, and I had only one of the lights on, so it was very low light, and I shone the torch on her face. And all I'm looking for there, I don't mind that it's a poor quality photograph at all. All I'm looking for there is some guidance as how to apply those shadows now to the photograph on the left. So this is going to be a little bit challenging, but basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm painting the painting on the left, but I'm painting it using the very strong highlights and lowlights that is featured in the painting on the right. So bear with me, because this is going to be seriously challenging. But as you will know by now, I really enjoy challenging stuff. It's great fun because it really stretches your imagination. And you know, like I said in the video yesterday, that these guys that painted in the chiaroscuro fashion, the old masters in the sort of late 15s, early 1600s, they didn't have the luxury of photography. So from what I'm doing now, they may well have considered to be cheating, I suppose. But what they would do is they would put their models in low light and have to paint in a really dark room, or they would have to put their models in light so that they could paint, but then imagine the shadows. So I think they probably did a similar thing, but it was all happening in their head, whereas I've got the luxury of having the photograph in front of me. Nevertheless, it is still incredibly challenging, and it's going to be great fun to paint. So what I did when I started this canvas was I did my normal imprimatura layer over the charcoal drawing. Now the charcoal drawing is such that it's nice and dark, so it's going to show through the imprimatura layer. But what I've done is I've used a really dark brown for my imprimatura layer. Now I've chosen the brown on purpose because it's very similar to what the old masters would have used. In this case I'm using a Van Dyke brown. You could use a burnt or a raw umber. I like the Van Dyke brown in this one because it's got a slight warmth to it, which I quite like. But I've just coated the canvas. I've done it relatively thickly. I haven't watered the paint down too much or thinned the paint down too much. I have mixed it with my usual little bit of oil with quite a lot of terps and painted it on relatively heavily. And I'm coming in now with a cloth and a brush and some terps, and I'm starting to wipe out. Now, as I said, the highlights that I'm following are the highlights that featured in the second photograph, the one that I was messing around with my cell phone, just wanting to get an idea of the highlights and lowlights. But what I did notice in that photograph is that there's a heck of a lot of difference with the sort of slightly bottom lit strong lighting on the side of her face. There's a lot of difference to her features, so I'm going to have to do quite a lot of fudging, because the original drawing that I had underneath, the little bit of tone that I did put on that face, I did obviously according to the original photograph. So I've now got to try and ignore some of the charcoal work that I did in terms of the toning and the values that I put in there, and I'm now putting toning and values in according to that very bright bottom lit area on the bottom of her cheek, and as the light is catching underneath her brow, I also see that there's a very big difference in the glint in her eye. so the highlight on the eye is going to have to go in a very different place. I decided to come in a little bit later, you'll see it, I decided to come in and lighten the background a little bit because I wanted there to be a little bit of light behind her head as well. But basically what I've done now is I've just concentrated very strongly on the very strong highlights and not terribly much on the low lights. Right at the end I come in and I just increase the density of the color in the low light areas. It's nowhere near as dark or as dense as what it's going to be in the final painting as what I'm seeing in my head, but I just wanted to get it down there to start getting an idea of the very strong light and the very strong dark. Now what I wanted to say, while you're watching me doing this, I think it is really, really important to remember why it is that you're doing that particular painting. When you start a painting, there's something about that painting that has gripped your imagination, something about it that you really want to communicate, something that you're passionate about. And I think in this particular case it's pretty obvious. It's the very strong highlights on the side of her face and what it does to her features. So we need to get that right down right in the beginning. I could of course have painted my imprimatura layer on and then come back and started painting the face and left the highlights until right at the end. Somehow there is an emotional communication right at the beginning. If you take the part of the painting that you are most passionate about and you start with that, and in this case as I'm feeling it as I'm painting, the highlights are really gripping my attention here, so that's what I'm starting with. Now, as you know, what we're going to be going through now is specifically how light plays with your subject, and it's the light falling on your subject that you're particularly wanting to capture, and the different ways to do that. We're starting off with chiaroscuro. Now, obviously, the old masters would have painted very much in the glazing style. If you go back and have a look at the glazing videos, it would have been very similar, where they would have started with their imprimatura. They may have done a grisaille layer over that. They would have followed the normal steps of the old master's technique. Now, I'm not necessarily going to do that. I may well, in my next layer, just go straight into the more modern painterly kind of way of doing things, because what I'm trying to show you here is not a specific style so much, it's the technique of the light and dark, and that you can create in any style that you work in, whether you're working in the old master style or if you're working in your own style or a more modern impressionistic style, whatever the case may be. It's the play of light and dark, and the style that you use to create it is not as important so much as the technique of actually doing that very strong light and dark. So I think for speed's sake, I may well stick to my own natural style, my own natural way of doing things, and because the way of doing it, the glaze layers, layer after layer after layer, is very time consuming, and it's not necessary to do it in this particular case, because that's not what this lesson is about. This lesson is about this strong chiaroscuro effect that we're trying to create. The challenging part about this painting is going to be applying the highlights of one painting to the face of another. So it's going to be quite fun to watch. I'm interested to see how I'm going to cope with this, and hopefully I don't let you guys down. So that is it, artists. That's the start of the chiaroscuro painting. As it stands at the moment, I'm pretty happy with where it's going, and it remains to be seen how this painting progresses. So thanks so much for joining me in day 89. Please stay tuned for the rest of this painting and like and share. I'll see you in day 90, and have a great day. Bye. That's what you want to do.